Hello again, and welcome back to the ADRA Insider podcast. We are once again physically distanced. We look forward to the day where we can all come back together, but for now we will do what we can. Today we are joined again by Daniel Saugh, and we are joined by Anita Odondi.
Thank you, Michael. I'm Anita Odondi.
Anita Mwanguzi.
Yes,
Okay.
you're the only one who pronounces my name really well.
Yes.
Mwanguzi.
Mwanguzi.
Yes.
Anita Mwanguzi Odondi.
Odondi.
All
Thank
right.
you, Michael. Happy to be here. Thank you so much.
You're most welcome. And Daniel.
Yes, so it's great to be here with you, Michael. Thank you for the opportunity. So I serve as the Canadian Program Manager and happy to be on set today.
Again, my name is Michael Kirkby, and I am the Design and Communications Coordinator at ADRA Canada, and I am once again your host. We have Daniel on again. You were on recently,
Yes.
talking about our projects in Wikwemekong, and we are going to continue that theme, and we are expanding our talk today to include all of Canada.
Yes.
So we're going to talk about what ADRA is doing from coast to coast to coast, all three coasts.
Nice.
So Anita, you've been very involved in this for a number of years now. Can you give us a quick rundown on ADRA Canada's involvement in Canada
Yes.
in the past and where we are now?
And where we plan to go.
Oh,
in the
absolutely.
future,
Yeah,
right?
that's
That
the
will
important
be-
part, right?
Yes, so I am the Emergency Program Director, and before Daniel was chosen by God to join us in the Canadian program, to be a very big blessing to the emergency part of it, we were mostly responding to emergencies as they came. So when we had flooding or the Fort Mac fire or things like that, we worked with volunteers, we worked with the churches and the conferences to respond to the disasters.
So our involvement in Canada was more on a reactive basis.
Exactly.
Okay.
It was reactive. And after some time, myself and my team and ADRA Canada as a whole, we thought we need to reflect some of what we do, to replicate some of what we do abroad. ADRA internationally, we prepare a lot so
Right.
that when the disaster happens, we know what we are going to do. We have everything ready. We are not just reacting. And because we needed additional human resource, Daniel came in to help with that. So we are right now trying to put together what we call emergency management preparedness plans that will be for the conferences and for the churches. At the same time, we continue to respond to disasters like the COVID-19 one that has gone through to every fabric of life.
Right.
We have done a total of 33 projects, some of which have smaller projects inside there, so they probably come to maybe 40.
Yeah.
And we have been working with the churches to respond to COVID-19 in their community.
And so that's just 40 projects, just COVID-19 related.
Only COVID-19
Oh wow,
related.
okay. So that's
Yes.
not even our other projects we have going on in Canada.
No,
That's-
and you know that the floods have continued,
Of course,
and
yeah.
other things.
Because obviously emergencies aren't going to stop happening just because there's already an emergency.
No,
Yeah.
I wish they could.
Right? Wouldn't it be
But-
nice if they could take their turn?
Yeah, some countries have actually said that COVID-19 take the back seat. Like we still have ABCD
Yes.
happening.
Oh.
So it's been a blessing to be able to respond to COVID-19. We got a lot of support from the constituency in giving financially, praying. SDACC supported with funding some conferences. North America Division and ADRA also put together funds to respond to this, we'll say 40 projects.
Wow.
And these included food, working with
security.
food banks, helping people access food,
Yes.
non-food,
Non-food items,
essential items, psychosocial support. In Canada, the government has done tremendously to give and make sure that people have the things they need, but there's still so much and a lot of things falling through the cracks.
Right.
And
Well,
this
this-
is where the churches are reaching the most.
Yeah, and this has been such a huge thing. Like, they're obviously the government can do so much, but there's still going to be people that just are missed for whatever reason.
Yes.
And so, yeah, it's great that ADRA is able to step in and fill those holes that might exist or might pop up here and there. And our projects, they're not just in the hot spots either, are they? We have hotspots, well, like I said, coast to coast to coast.
Coast to coast, you mentioned it, yeah. And this was perhaps one of our most extensive national emergency responses. I think maybe our largest one ever. 40 projects, as you said, from coast to coast to coast, Pacific, Arctic, and East Coast. There were multiple projects in each province and territory. And some highlights were perhaps the one that's further north around the Arctic Circle in Nunavut.
Oh, wow.
And of course the capital was Iqaluit, and the one town that's closest to the Arctic Circle, namely Igloolik. And we were able to provide the funding necessary, emergency assistance funds, for them to access and be able to afford food so that they can distribute to their community members, because there's a great lack of food access and resources there.
Because Nunavut really went into a lockdown, didn't they?
They did.
Like,
they sure did.
It's almost impossible to get into Nunavut.
You really can't get in,
Yeah.
and they will prevent you from getting in, restrictions.
So I imagine that's
imposed.
really affected how people are able to access their food and basically
Certainly.
just...
Even when we paid for the food, it took 2 months
To get there.
to get there.
Yeah, so
Wow.
there was a delay in the shipment, but they finally got it, and then they were able to provide food bags and boxes, and it was amazing stories that came out of that. There was a lady that I think she was over 100 years old, and they delivered to her door, and she was so grateful, so grateful. And this Nunavut area is primarily Indigenous and Inuit community.
Okay.
So, we're very privileged to work with our Indigenous communities.
And then also in the larger urban centers and even in smaller places across Canada. Can you give me some more examples?
In Toronto,
Oh, yeah.
Toronto, one of the places helped to purchase iPads
Yes.
that they gave to palliative patients.
Okay. Yes.
That was in Barrie, right?
That's in Barrie.
It was
Yeah,
up in
just
Barrie.
south
Yeah.
of GTA.
Okay.
Patients who couldn't see their family members.
Yes,
Yeah.
at the peak of COVID.
Yes.
I had the privilege of visiting that project.
That's right.
Back in the summer, and
Yeah.
I was able to talk to the director of the home that we were working with, and she said the difference that it made in those people's lives.
It was also very therapeutic because in this time where there's much more stress, anxiety, and depression, being able to go out and help others was a big opportunity and privilege to divert all the depression into something helpful.
Exactly. Yeah, we
Yeah.
heard that coming out, Nita, in a lot of our volunteers who said, well, how can we help? And our response with over 33 projects and total maybe 40 was very helpful to engage volunteers from all ages, from youth to middle age to seniors, who actually said this helped them a lot to give back to the community and see people with a smile and put a smile on people's face.
And so that's something that we had the advantage of, is because we were working through the churches across Canada, correct?
Yes, that's right.
A lot of these projects were run by volunteers who...
All the projects were run by volunteers. Yeah.
Okay, so that's amazing. And so these people that just desperately wanted to help in some way.
And we were able to do all this work and to just hit the ground running because we have the churches already on the ground in their communities. And many months later, we started around April. Many months later, we have had amazing reports, both narrative and financial. They have submitted everything we need in order to continue being a registered charity in Canada, because when we are audited, we need to show accountability for the resources. And now we are beginning to look into phase 2. What does it look like when your community is in the red zone, gray zone, orange zone? How do you still continue to help the people who need the help the most? So we are working with churches to look into what the next response is going to be.
Well, that's great, and a huge shout out and thank you to all of our volunteers. I'd say, like,
Yes.
that is great news.
Mike, we were well pleased with the responsiveness from all of our churches, and the message that is coming from our leadership, from our top leadership in Canada, Seventh-day Adventist Church in Canada, and even our North American division leadership counterpart, saying that Canada, ADRA's response has been an example a model of how we can come together, unify our efforts, pool our resources together. So they were really complementing the work of ADRA and our responsiveness to connect to our churches all across Canada from coast to coast to coast to really make a difference with this COVID-19 pandemic.
That's great.
I like that shout out to the volunteers who we would not have done the work without.
Exactly.
Agreed.
A shout out also to all levels of the church.
Yes.
We have some provinces where, because they have few resources,
Yes.
the president of the conference took hands-on.
That's right.
And did whatever
Yes.
they needed to do.
That's right.
Everyone was engaged 100%.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I love hearing stories like that too.
For the first time, ADRA Canada are actually partner also with the NAD.
Yes,
Venice
North
Community
America
Services,
Division.
North
Yeah.
American Division, Venice Community Services, where they also contributed funds. And we were able to equally distribute it to all of our conferences across Canada. So it was wonderful to know that we were able to meet many of the needs. No one was left out.
And because of that, we have seen how well this has worked. I told you
Amen.
at the beginning, we were
Yes.
really wanting to be able to plan better and respond better.
Yes.
Then COVID came,
Yes.
forced us to immediately do what we have to do.
Yeah.
Now we have sat together and have done are working on a plan, as I told you, but we have also put together a strategic plan for many years to come.
Yes.
Because now that COVID is here, it's not going tomorrow. There's a new normal that we have now, and working with this new normal, we've put together a plan. How do we collect more financial resources that we need from the institutions we have? How do we work with the volunteers to use their skills, to use their expertise
Yes.
in the most efficient way?
Yes.
How do we work with the institutions
That's
that we
right.
have?
Exactly.
ABC Store, the universities, the schools, how do we work with those to best bring this across? So I'm excited that as much as COVID is a really bad thing, it has pushed us in the
Yes.
direction that is preparing us more to respond more effectively, efficiently, working with all God's children to reach out to those in need.
That's
Yeah,
amazing.
and I think COVID-19 forced us and facilitated us
Yes.
to develop this comprehensive plan. And going forward, we will continue to build on the partnerships. A structure is in place, knowing how and when to activate and deploy our resources and our volunteers. So I really think that there is some good coming out of COVID-19.
Right.
Now, you mentioned at the beginning, is it only COVID-19 responses that we did during this period of time? Well, not entirely. I mean, that was the primary focus, but we also had recent flooding several months ago in northern Alberta at Fort Mac, which
Fort Mac, yes.
ADRA has had a presence before, as
Yeah.
Anita mentioned, when we responded to the fires. But this time it was water flooding. And ADRA Canada was able to partner with our local church there, the Fort Mac Seventh-day Adventist Church, and they were able to use their church for both the flooding, but of course COVID-19 had compounded that.
Oh, yes.
So it was almost a dual response,
Yeah. Yes.
right? So they opened their church foyer and they had over 400 emergency care kits. Some were non-food items, and then they had packages of food as well. So many people came through, including some clothing, and it was getting cold up there, right? And so they were able to help them a lot. And what's amazing, there's another unique project. There was a family that had their home, they had to evacuate because there was complete damage in the basement and they had no insurance. So the church through ADRA was able to adopt that home or that family, and they're helping to rebuild their home so they can get back in there before Christmas, before
Wonderful.
the new year.
Wonderful. That is amazing. And earlier you had mentioned, so we've mentioned the COVID response projects were providing food, and also we talked about the tablets that we provided at the palliative care home.
Yes.
What other sort of projects did we do for COVID?
There was non-food items like hygiene items, PPE equipment for some of our hospitals
That's right.
and
Okay.
institutions,
Yeah.
and there was also counseling,
Counseling.
okay.
Yes.
mental health.
So yeah, we had a very broad approach,
That's right.
Yes, a
Exactly.
but
comprehensive
broad but
one.
targeted.
Yeah, that's right. You got it. Because there's multiple needs. Of course,
Yeah.
the primary needs that emerged was food, because a lot of people had lost their jobs and access to certain foods and places. So the food was a very huge or a larger response, but it was amazing that it was not only limited to that. So having our churches where we have some trained chaplains and pastors, there people could come in and get some acute, emotional and counseling support there.
There was also some support with rent.
Yes, there's some rent subsidies as well.
Yeah.
So it was quite a, as you said, broad but targeted, right?
Broadly targeted.
Yeah. No, that's great.
Broadly focused.
That's great.
Yes.
One project that I want to talk about that kind of came out of COVID, but I personally, and I'm sure you both can see, it's something that would be amazing if it could continue. I was able to visit in September,
Yes.
at the beginning of September. Daniel, you and I, we
Yes.
traveled down to Kingston.
That's right.
Can you tell me a little bit about what's going on in Kingston and why it's so exciting?
For sure. The term is community garden, and Kingston actually approached us, the Seventh-day Adventist Church, and the pastor there, Pastor Edgar. He actually said, would ADRA be able to partner with us because food security needs are high in this community. So they have a plot of land. They are on several acres. I think it's a church that you grew up in, right?
It is the church I grew up in.
Oh, is it?
And my family still goes there.
Oh, they still go there, right?
Yeah.
And I think your father was instrumental in helping to build. So we said, sure, we'll go in as a partner. So we did that, and they were able to cultivate about 8 garden beds on their property. And what they did is prior to that, they sent out a survey, a kind of questionnaire to the community, and there was a community response. I mean, not everyone will respond, but those who responded, they actually indicated that their willingness to help actually take care or sponsor a bed. So they had 8 different people from the community, 8 different individuals from the community who actually came and not help to build and also plant their gardens. And so what happens with the church is that they were able to forge a very strong relationship. There was one particular member who said, I've been in this community for over 20 years. And I've been looking out my window at that church and I'm saying, I've never set foot on the church, but when he was invited to participate in the community garden, he says, this put a new face on the church.
Yeah.
Do you remember?
Yeah. He said to us that for all those years,
Yes.
the church had always just been a building.
Yeah.
And now he has a connection to it, and he has forged relationships with people within the church and the pastor, who they get along very well now.
Absolutely.
And he has a little plot of land in the church property where he's been able to feed himself.
Yes.
And not just himself, his wife was able to make zucchini bread for the whole neighborhood.
Yeah.
So it was
It was a great story.
Yeah.
And they have a good rapport, as you said. And what we also found out was that the community gardens there, they were able to harvest about over 200 pounds of food, and they gave it to 2 local soup kitchens that provide hot meals for people who are homeless in the downtown Kingston core.
Yeah.
So we have to replicate those
like
things
that.
in
Yes.
other communities.
Yeah.
Absolutely. In fact, that discussion we had was actually how can this be a sustainable project and how can it serve as a pilot project that can be introduced and implemented in other communities. So I think we're going to use this definitely as a model, from the garden to the table. And one of the things that the pastor mentions that they're going to have a kind of community garden forum where they actually have a nutritional, educational piece to it, and it keeps the community connected. They'll have a demonstration of like a cooking demonstration, how to use the actual veggies harvested so that people can learn that this is healthy, this is wholesome, and it's good for your overall health.
And you know that also how much that contributes to mental health
That is
in
a
the
significant
community.
contributor.
Yeah,
Very
these-
therapeutic.
These
Very
people that might have been
therapeutic.
trapped in their homes are now able to go out
It's
and
amazing.
work on their garden. They can interact with people.
Yeah, I see some people
Praise
talking
God.
to their fruits and veggies. And by the way, we saw that every garden produced healthy products. And this was organic, by the way. Organic. And it was healthy tomatoes. I think we brought some back to the office.
We
Anita,
sure
right?
did, yeah.
you shared.
Samples,
You
right?
shared, yeah.
And lettuce and cabbage and rhubarb. And you know what's amazing is that right beside the church is a long-term care facility. The seniors came out and we talked with them, and it made a big difference.
For years, they've just been looking out their window at an empty field.
That's right.
And now they have gardens full of flowers and
Yeah.
vegetables to look at. And while we were there, some of them came out and set up their chairs, and they sit there and they talk in the garden.
That's right.
And also that the home, they provided all the water.
That's right. That we were able to
they
use
did.
their water
they,
source.
They set up a hose
Yeah.
just for us so that we could get our water and we could water the gardens. And,
It was
And so
amazing.
it really brought the whole community together.
It really did.
So
community garden.
That's what it's, true community garden.
Really,
So
really, truly.
We really want to take that as a model and transport to other communities, especially during this COVID-19 pandemic period, where our partners, such as our churches, who have property and land, could consider some project like this.
Yeah.
So good.
It's really exciting to see the difference being made, and the engagement with people who would not normally speak or come in contact with the church.
Yeah.
So there's a way that we can break down barriers.
Yeah.
And we get some delicious vegetables out of it.
Yeah.
So really, it's a win-win.
Yeah.
The next project I was hoping we could talk about is our MANS project in Alberta. MANS is the Mamawe-Ataskatan Native School, and it's located in Hobbema, which is in the Maskawakis Reserve. Is a Cree nation in central Alberta. It's been around since the 1990s and has been providing education for students K through 12 in that community. So if we can talk a little bit about what we've been doing there and how long we've been doing it and what we are continuing to do.
We have been supporting the MANS project.
That's right.
For many years. There are many people out there in our constituency that give to the MANS project faithfully.
Yes.
And as we get the money, we pass it on annually.
Yes.
They have informed us that it's very helpful for food for the students.
100%.
Because many of them come without a meal.
Exactly.
And you can't study without a meal.
There's about 200 students coming in from the 4 reserves combined in total. They don't come with their lunches, and even they miss breakfast. And so this food program, assistance food program, has been able to provide both breakfast and lunch for them. And so I actually was on the site seeing the preparation. They have volunteer educational assistants because they can't afford to employ chefs, but who 2 EAs, they call them, educational assistants, who have a passion for cooking and food. And it's supervised. They're following all the public health restrictions, of course, with COVID-19, and also hygiene principles. They provide the food. But what's amazing is that sometimes they have students, they have a program where they have students learning to cook. So they have them with their hands on, learning how to prepare a healthy meal. And of course, they're wearing their gloves and their masks. And so this food program has really benefited them. And it has helped students stay in school and finish their school year.
You also get more. Those who cook get more.
They
get
more
a bigger
food.
portion.
They get
they get sample.
Exactly. There's some fringe benefits that come with that, right?
Yeah.
So it was really helpful. We've been doing it for several years, as we mentioned, and we want to continue to partner with them. What's interesting also is that they also developed a community garden.
Okay.
Yeah, and they had a lot of potatoes, and so they were making a lot of French fries and potato products and all that. So the students were learning to peel and learn to harvest from the garden and bring it into and prepare the food. So it was a tremendous experience to actually observe that, and they were able to feed the entire school.
That was their COVID-19 Response project.
Yes,
the
you
garden.
got exactly, community garden. So that's a little additional piece to the school feeding program that we participate and partner with them in. We want to continue that going forward.
Yes, absolutely. So that's one of our longer running community projects in an Indigenous community. And then the last few years, we've been working in Wikwemkong in Northern Ontario. We had a podcast on that previously. You are more than welcome to check that one out at adra.ca/podcasts. It will be also featuring Daniel and our executive director, Steve Matthews. And in that one, we go into more detail on our projects in Wikwemkong. And then in the eastern part of Canada, Nova Scotia, we have had an ongoing partnership with the food bank there.
That's right.
Yeah.
Parker Street Furniture and Food Bank.
Okay.
They've been doing a tremendous job making impact in the city of Halifax, and the surrounding environments of that area. And they have provided, so many like hot meals as well as food boxes for people. So a lot of homeless people, people who are underprivileged, low income. It's just tremendous. They've been featured actually on CTV and all that. So they are making a significant impact. Amazing. And we're very happy to partner with them.
I want to say that they do a very professional job as well.
Oh, okay.
Which is a good thing, because God calls us to do a good job.
Exactly.
If we are doing for Christ, we should do the best that we can. But I also wanted to add that just like Parker Street, And many of the churches we worked with, they didn't just use the money that ADRA gave them. They multiplied that money with their own contributions and contributions from the community, both in-kind donations and cash donations.
Amazing.
So you find like a $10,000 project became $50,000 because of the in-kind donations they got and their own contributions, which is an amazing thing. So the dollar just keeps multiplying.
Yes.
Amazing.
Not
That
just
is truly
financially,
amazing. Yeah.
but like we've seen the kitchen gardens,
yes.
it multiplies endlessly. Like so many benefits that are priceless.
I
It
agree.
ends up being priceless.
How are the projects that we currently have leading us into the future, and what is ADRA looking forward to, and what sort of projects do we see on the horizon?
Well, very exciting. There's hope on the horizon. I've had many discussions with Anita and other members of our team at ADRA. We really want to build a robust and healthy national program. So that includes our emergency response and also development as well. And then, of course, we have something attached to it called Ministries of Compassion. So we are actually linking it all together for a more comprehensive program to make an impact. So we really want to see emphasis in addressing indigenous needs or communities, partnering with them, youth engagement. We're looking at, of course, the community garden with a kind of eco-based, environmental stewardship emphasis. We really want to look at connecting in areas that are really underserviced, like inner city, urban areas, and really connecting with our young people, because youth in our today's world, they really want to get involved in volunteering and making a difference, transforming their communities. So that's some of the areas and some other things.
Yes, another big one that we want to do is training. Because we have volunteers, we can't do anything without the volunteers, because we are only how many people at ADRA Canada, based in Newcastle.
Yes.
So we cannot do without volunteers. However, there are volunteers that are already skilled, like the ones in Fort Mac, who you have carpenters and who said, okay, we are going to do this house.
Yes.
But we have lots of volunteers also that say, I want to help, but I don't know how. No. And apart from having skills, how do I use them in a disaster situation? Because it's not a normal situation. We want to do training.
Yes.
We have courses that are laid out because of COVID-19. We want to see how to adjust that so that it's online. Everything is online these days. Yes. We want to have online courses. We want to have audios and videos and in-person training when we eventually are able to do that, so that the volunteers are prepared for when to respond to a disaster. We want to have a program where we register the volunteers. We know those who are trained and how they are trained. We know those who are not trained, and have contact with them so that before a disaster happens or when a disaster happens, we send out information and activate. So we want to have a robust program. It's very exciting, and God is in it, and the time is now. The time is
It's also really exciting to see ADRA taking what we do so well around the world, because we do an amazing job around the world, and now bringing it home to improve the lives of people that so desperately need it here.
Yes,
absolutely.
And customizing it to Canada and the structure that we have.
And just to bring it closer to home, someone will ask, well, what is ADRA Canada doing in their own backyard?
Yes.
Right? So in fact, I got to mention to you that even literally in our own backyard, just maybe a few 100 meters away, there is a food bank called the Clarington East Food Bank, and they actually reached out, and they had this advertising in the local newspaper saying there's a shortage of food and assistance, and also boxes to put the food in. And so ADRA Canada responded, and we were able to provide some emergency assistance funds to provide necessary food for them, and also boxes to put the food in so they can deliver it to families and to homes.
That's amazing.
And talking about the volunteers, we just want to thank all of our volunteers for their gallant efforts, for their time, their energy, their efforts. Without them, our programs could not be successfully implemented and completed. So we really thank God for all of the volunteers. And as Anita mentioned, we're going to continue to roll out some training programs so that volunteers can be equipped and we can have a database all across Canada. So when emergencies, disasters happens, or even our development projects, we can call on them. And people are actually knocking on our doors to say, how can I be a part of ADRA? What can I do to help? So we see interest as well.
Yes.
Among the volunteers is the ambassadors.
Yes.
You want to give a special shout out to the ambassadors?
Our ambassadors, as you know, ambassador is someone who represents their country in a foreign place or in another place. So our ADRA ambassador represents the work we do at ADRA, both nationally and internationally. And most of our ambassadors are local ambassadors that are connected to their local church in their community. And so we are really developing our ADRA. Well, we've had ADRA Ambassador program. We are continuing to build on it and really connect the dots, close the gap, so to speak, because we really appreciate our ambassadors. Without them, many of the churches will not know what's happening, will not be able to kind of support, our gift catalog and respond to emergencies when they arise.
Well, I really want to thank you two for joining me today. It's so exciting hearing about our projects here in Canada. And as always, it's great having you two on the podcast. It's always great catching up and having this time to talk and go over what we're doing. If you're interested in learning about any of the projects that we discussed today, please visit our website, adra.ca. And if you want to listen to any of the previous podcasts, including the one with Daniel and Steve Matthews, talking about our project in Wikwemikong, please visit adra.ca/podcasts. Or you can find them on any of your favorite podcast streaming platforms. Thank you again.
You're very
and
welcome.
thank you for joining.
It's a pleasure.
Yes, thank you for joining us on the ADRA Insider podcast. Until next time.